So let's get into December energy. December 2023 brings us the themes of progression and spiritual warfare. I talked about spiritual warfare a bit on the podcast. Hopefully, you got a chance to listen to that and talking about what it really looks like. Um, but there's a lot of planetary action going on in December that is going to bring us, hopefully, it brings us the support for the progression we need. Now, what we do with that is up to us. So, on the first, we have Mercury moving into Capricorn, Mercury being the way that we communicate, the way that we learn. And Mercury in Capricorn has us learning new things to create foundations. As things fall apart, as things come undone, we have to create these new foundations. On the 4th, we have Venus in Scorpio. And that gives us a chance to dig deep into our passions. But we need to watch for the desire for revenge. We need to think first, right? We're creating these new foundations. We got to make sure that we're thinking, we're discerning, because we can get deep into, I think we are so unbalanced right now. We're so out of balance with so many things that people are just doing a lot of whatever, and it is quite unhinged the way people are operating. So you just got to watch out for folks who are going for their passions, but they may become a bit unhinged because maybe things don't work out the way that they wanted to, or the way that they envisioned it working out. So we have to just kind of watch out for that a bit. On the 6th, we have Neptune going direct in Pisces. If you've been following me for a while, I've been talking about this, the Neptune energy, especially with Neptune having been in Pisces for the past 12 years. It is going to move out of Pisces into Aries by 2025. And Neptune goes retrograde and then goes direct every year, right? And so we get this chance to just kind of pause and have some introspection and then move forward. Well, with Neptune going direct in Pisces, and Neptune stays in Pisces right now through 2025, right? So when it went retrograde, that was time for us to review the progress of our spiritual evolution. We're really coming undone with all of this like strict overt religious doctrine. But now, as things progress, we need to be discerning about who teaches. The shifts taking place are currently they're in an aversion to this doctrine. It's not because people are drawn to healing necessarily. People are still stepping into these healing places with no healing ability or divine direction to be a guide, right? And so this is what spiritual warfare actually looks like. You have people who are posing and stepping up to the forefront of all of these seemingly spiritual places, but they haven't been divinely appointed to guide. They're still guiding people based in fear. And a lot of what we see happening in the church, especially, is it's still fear-based. It's like, don't go over here because there are witches over there. Well, do you know what the real witches were? They were herbalists. They were women who helped heal, but they, you know, people said, no, don't go over there because there's something ungodly about that. And we're still spouting rhetoric from like the 1600s when we have knowledge. And it doesn't make sense, y'all. It doesn't make sense. Right now, religious structures are struggling to maintain as they had on their past agendas. Their past agendas were, it was very like, it was very selfish, right? And their agendas weren't centered on the people. It was centered on the church. And then when people figured that out during this Neptune and Pisces, and they started just kind of leaving, then the church is like scrambling, like, oh my God, we got to get people back. And so now we have to do things like say, meditation is the devil. You don't want to do that. They're, them telling you these frequencies that they're putting out there are demonic. So you need to come on back over here. And the only music you can listen to is this music that we play right here, because this we know is anointed. Well, how do you know that? Like, where did your anointing come from? And they're basically still kind of saying anybody that doesn't come from the church, or this person didn't say this, then they're not appointed by God. When in actuality, God has the ability to speak through so many people and so many vehicles and so many avenues, because we are a reflection of God, right? And so now we have to be super discerning about who teaches. We can't just assume that because somebody's in the church that they are godly. We never could assume that, but people did widely, right? You have to be careful. This is where you have to be tuned in. For years, I've been talking to people about attuning their intuition, making sure that your discernment is sharp, because we need it for stuff like this. We need it for stuff like this. We need it to just be able to listen to God speak anyway. But there's this space where they don't want any autonomy. They don't want you to be able to go to God directly. They want you to pay them to say, you got to pay me to go to God. No. That's one of the things that I do, even with my sessions. I'm like, how many times you going to keep paying me before you go ahead and attune and get your own, get Jesus on the main line for yourself? I'm always teaching people like, you need to do this for yourself. What happened when you sat down at your altar? But the church isn't doing that. They're like, you have to come here for this. You have to come here to get your fix. I have to give you God so you can take that with you for the week. No. And people are falling back into a lot of things based in fear because of what the scope of the world looks like right now. And the propaganda is to just continue to teach people in fear. You know what? I tell people all the time, yeah, there's some dips and there's some valleys and the stuff don't look good all the time. But on the other side of this, there's something that is very beautiful that we have got to get to. There's hope on that other side. You know what I mean? And it's really scary because we haven't made the progress that we were supposed to really make. And we need to do better. Right. Constructive criticism. We need to do better. So as these things continue to move forward, and I'm going to use the word progress, but I'm also going to just say as things move forward, we have to be highly discerning about who teaches. Remember, I'm always talking about be careful of people who cosplay. You got these folks who take you on these spiritual retreats and do all this stuff, and all they do is backbite and sleep with each other. But they got all the followers. They got the magic with the marketing. That you have to be able to extract the messenger from the message. Like sometimes we can't keep being in this space where we're like, oh, this is a charismatic person and I really like them, but I know that their life is trash, right? I know that they do all these other things, but God is just going to send this message through the most unlikely person. Y'all keep misinterpreting everything for your own personal benefit so you can stay in your crap. We got to do better. So we're going to see this shift taking place, continuing to take place, having an aversion to doctrine. This is where you're supposed to go through and do your own research. You're supposed to do your own research, but you have to be attuned to be able to do that, so you know exactly what you're reading and you can pay attention with divine knowledge to what's going on, because part of what the research is not just in understanding what you're currently reading, like the text you're reading, but understanding contextually, like historically, what was going on at that time. You can't read these texts and not understand the historical significance of what happened in that time. But people have so much information at their fingertips, and just knowledge is just, comprehension is just, it's flooring me. So yeah, Neptune going direct in Pisces. We are hugely in the midst of spiritual warfare, and it's not what they keep trying to tell you, this like good versus evil, like some Disney movie or something like that out here. It's the demons that everybody possesses personally, on a crash course collision with other people's demons. It's very human nature. And so watch out, because these healing spaces look healing, but they're actually not. And that's what you need to be watching out for, not Andre 3000's a flute album. No, you need to watch out for the person whose frequency is nice, nasty, and them being around you drains you, but they go to church all day. You got to watch out for them church folks that don't teach you anything positive about relationships. They teach you, I'm going to keep my man over here, and I ain't going to let nobody else have my man. My man can't go out and do this, this, and that. But ain't you in the church, though? That's a frequency right there. We don't want to talk about that, because they play a church organ with it, and all of a sudden it's supposed to be good. You got to watch all of that stuff. You got to watch the conversations that you have every day. Those are frequency. You got to watch, how you're being asked to give, and what you're being asked to give, and where you're being asked to give. You got to watch out for those churches that sit in communities that are in shambles, but the church is there and it's open every Sunday, but the community around them sucks. That's a frequency. But you want people to not listen to an album of meditation music, because God forbid they actually have some clarity and see how corrupt things are around them and actually want to fix them. The church is also part of the reason why they talk about with medication, in the medical world, that there's no profit in the cure. The same can be said about religious structures and the way that things are operating right now. So coming into December, we have to just kind of take a look at what progression is really supposed to look like for ourselves. How far you want to go and how far you've come.